Don't you dare, ref. That's he got the ball. Good morning, Tottenham fans all around the world. Welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boy Dave. And how is everyone feeling after the international break? It's been 2.5 weeks since Tottenham Hotspur have last played, and as fans I would argue the international break was very much needed, but hopefully we've all come back re-energised and revitalised and ready for the final push of this season. And I'm not going to lie, despite the form we've been in, I have missed watching Tottenham. But the great thing is I found the antidote, because we are back in action tonight as we travel across London to take on London rivals Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Now, historically, Chelsea have been a bogey team for us. We have a dreadful record at Stamford Bridge, with our last win coming back in 2018, 7 years ago, when Dele Alli sprung them heroics. Honestly, it feels like yesterday. It's absolutely mad. And in years gone by, I could understand the dread heading into this fixture. However, I don't think this is as monumental a task as it has been in years gone by. Chelsea have been inconsistent since late December. They've only won just 7 of the last 17 games across all competitions. A double-header against Copenhagen in the Europa Conference League, beating Morecambe, Leicester City, Wolves, West Ham and Southampton. So, in my opinion, they are there to be exploited and taken advantage of. But the big question is, do we have the stomach for the battle? And I really hope they do have the stomach for the battle, because I think it's a huge make or break in terms of momentum for Spurs, in terms of salvaging our season and building momentum heading into that Europa League. And lastly, with Spurs facing such a busy fixture schedule of 3 games in just 7 days. Today's heated derby against Chelsea, Sunday's match against Southampton, and then next Thursday again against Frankfurt. I think it'll be interesting to see how Postecoglou approaches tonight's derby. Given the intensity and potential for crunching tackles, does he prioritise resting key players for upcoming matches, or will he go and field a full-strength team and the strongest team available for the derby game? I would argue if he wants to get fans on side, he needs to go full strength. So let's get into it. The lineup that I think Postecoglou will go with to hopefully try and get a result at Stamford Bridge. Starting in goal, and it's an obvious choice because the likes of Forrester, Austin, Kinski failed to bring that stability that Vicario provided in his absence. And that's why Vicario has since come back in and regained that number 1 spot. And he has provided that stability that we needed back there. In this fixture, we desperately need a big performance from Vicario. He's going to be very busy here tonight at Stamford Bridge, given Spurs' defensive issues this season. And also the return of Nicholas Jackson, Cole Palmer and Nonu Madueke for Chelsea means a lot of their best attacking threats are back. And in this fixture, there's traditionally been a lot of goals, so there is potential for a very high goal scoring game today. And I think Vicario will be absolutely crucial in trying to keep that scoreline down and manageable to actually give Spurs a chance to get something from this match. At left back, Destiny Udogie I think is set to miss out, given how impressive Jed Spence's run has been at left back since his emergence in the team. And from my perspective, the big difference between Spence and Destiny Udogie lies when they are in possession. When Udogie played down the left with Maddison and Son, many of our attacks would break down either with Udogie in possession or the ball at his feet. However, I think when Jed Spence is in the side at left back, the play feels much more fluid down that wing. And I'd also argue we become far more threatening going forward when you've got that link-up shit down there. But also, defensively, Jed Spence has proven, and in his interview, he backs himself. It doesn't matter what winger you throw at him, he feels like he's better than them, which I think is actually half the battle. He's a guy that's playing with a lot of confidence right now, and hopefully we see that replicated in this game against Chelsea. However, despite Jed Spence putting in performances since breaking into the Spurs 11, Spence was overlooked by Thomas Tuchel for England, and I think he'll definitely have a point to prove coming out into this game. And there's no better opportunity for Jed Spence to go and prove that point than one of the biggest fixtures on the Premier League calendar. At right back, despite his defensive deficiencies, Pedro Porro is absolutely crucial to Tottenham's attacking play, making them runs down that right-hand side, playing balls for players over the top, while also getting down there and providing crosses. Now, if we did have a winger that could produce that, then you would make the case, you take Pedro Porro out of the team and you put someone there that's more defensively solid. However, because we have no threat down this right-hand side, effectively we're actually asking Pedro Porro to do 2 jobs, the right back and the right winger's job, and I think it's quite unfair on him. He is going to have a really tough game. He could be up against the likes of Madueke, Sancho and Kunku, any of them players, and I do think Maresca, if he's clever, will look to target that side like many other teams have done this season. Hopefully Pedro Porro has the answer, can lock it up defensively, but also provide that little bit of magic going forward. At centre-back, we are expecting the return of Mickey van de Ven and Christian Romero to return to the heart of the Tottenham Hotspur backline. Now, ironically, we have not seen this partnership since they last got injured against Chelsea, and the return is this fixture against Chelsea. Touch wood, we can actually get them through this one unscathed. And my big hope and my feeling is that they can finally give us that solid foundation that I think we've been lacking and craving for large parts of this season. We will need Van de Ven's pace to be able to deal with the balls that Chelsea will look to play in behind us for their fast attackers, like I've already mentioned, Sancho, Jackson and Kunku, Madueke, whoever plays. They are going to look to release them in behind our high line, and Van de Ven will be absolutely crucial in terms of snuffing that out. But also, I think this is where Romero comes into his own. His no-nonsense, tough tackling approach will be absolutely key and something that we've missed in these London derbies in years gone by. That nastiness, that bit of edge. When the game gets spicy, a player that's not afraid to step up and mix it up with them. And that's what Romero will provide. My biggest hope, though, is with all the rumours around Romero's future and the uncertainty, is that it doesn't affect his performance. You know, his big thing, you know, from what we're being led to believe, is that, you know, he has ambitions of wanting to go and win trophies, and maybe doesn't see that at Tottenham Hotspur. But there's a huge opportunity between now and the end of the season, especially with the Europa League, to be able to go and win that and get yourself playing Champions League football next season. And I do hope that he can recognise that and step up to the plate between now and the end of the season and not let the speculation affect his performances. Now, moving into the midfield, and we will start with the number 6. Now, Archie Gray did start against Fulham in that defeat, and Postecoglou realistically has a number of options he can play here. Archie Gray, Rodrigo Bentancur, Yves Bissouma, who he heavily criticised after the game against Fulham about his discipline and the way he phases out of games and switches off in games, so I doubt he's going to come in. So for me, I do think it's a toss-up between Archie Gray and Rodrigo Bentancur. Now, it's interesting to see, where does Ange Postecoglou see Bentancur's future in this midfield? Is it pushed up further in that number 8 role like he played in Fulham, or is it in that number 6 role that he's played a lot of his time here under Postecoglou? But one thing for sure is that since he's come back from his injuries and suspensions, he has been a mainstay in this midfield, and he will walk straight back into it, and I do think he will start in this number 6 role. Now, what I will say with Bentancur is, since his return, he has been very inconsistent. There's been some absolutely tremendous performances in there. Lovely disciplined performances, getting out, stopping attacks, pulling down counter-attacks, allowing us to get reset, but also in terms of getting on the ball, taking control, drawing 2 or 3 players in and just pumping it through the lines for us to get turned. But then there's also been some awful games where he's been way off it in terms of pulling down counters and hasn't really been that good on the ball in terms of trying to push it forward and stuff like that. But we need his biggest game of the season. Someone like him, the heartbeat of this midfield, the mainstay in this midfield. We need him to step up to the plate, pull others along with him, and put in a massive performance. Now, moving into the 2 players ahead of Bentancur in this midfield. Now, I know Bergwall has probably earned it. He's been absolutely brilliant. I think before the last international break, he was on a run of 20-odd games for Tottenham Hotspur. However, over the international break, he was ill, which led to him missing out on the Sweden games. And a game of this magnitude, if you're not 100%, do you take that risk, knowing that it's going to be a very fiery contest? The midfield battle is going to be very ferocious. You're not going to have a lot of time on the ball, but also you're going to have to get around the pitch, muck in, hit people, stuff like that. I just wonder, if he's not 100% fit, will Postecoglou drop him to the bench and make sure he's ready for the weekend and bring in Papa Matasar? But I would also argue, I think this is the sort of game where you need what Papa Matasar provides in that midfield. That industrious nature to be able to get around, turn the ball over. We are going to spend large periods of this game out of possession. And you need someone like Sarr, who is, quite frankly, just a disruptor in that midfield. We need that. But also, this guy does provide a goal threat going forward. Likes to get up into the box or in around the edge of the box. And he's confident enough to have a pop. And sometimes these games can be won by decisions like that. So for me, I would argue, even if Bergwall is 100% fit, I think this is the right game to bring in Papa Matasar. Now, what I will say is, this could work in 2 ways. Sarr or Bergwall can end up dropping into the number 6 with Bentancur and James Maddison playing above him. or it could be a double pivot of Bentancur and Papamatsar with James Maddison in the number 10. Let me know in the comment section what you would prefer to see. And then to complete the midfield will be James Maddison, who is another player with a point to prove after being left out of Thomas Tuchel's England squad. Now, when he came on in the second half against Fulham, he did make an impact. We started getting the game going the other way. We started attacking Fulham. We just couldn't capitalise on it on a day. But we are going to need a similar level of performance here. And again, same as Jed Spence's case, in a game of this magnitude, that's where you put your name down for selection on the England sheet. What you produce in these games. And with him having 2.5 weeks off, I would hope he comes out raring to go. Thing is with James Maddison, I want to love the guy so much, but he makes it hard when he underwhelms. However, there was a stat that I did read today that he has produced 18 goal contributions this term, despite the criticism. And I think he's up there, ahead of Bruno Fernandes, I think, in terms of that. And look at the impact he has every game for Man United in and out, which maybe alludes to that James Maddison is a very good player, but it's just about now bringing that consistency week in, week out. And hopefully it starts here. Now, moving into the front line, Tottenham have struggled for goals recently. Our attacking threat has been non-existent in recent weeks, having failed to score in 3 of our last 6 matches. So it will need a change-up if we want to become more clinical. But we're going to start with the left-hand side, and of course, our captain will return. It will be Sonny taking up the left wing option. Now, interestingly, stats about Sonny into this game. Chelsea isn't notoriously a game where Son tends to turn up. I think he's only scored 3 goals in 20 games against them. But also, he has no assist across them 20 games against Chelsea whatsoever. So this is a game where Son notoriously struggles for one reason or another. We can't afford that today. If we need anybody to step up today and drag us over the line, we badly need Son to step up in this game. So hopefully he can do that. Moving on to right wing. And look, I think it's a toss-up between Wilson-Odobert and Brennan Johnson. Now, I would argue Brennan Johnson was given another chance to try and nail down that spot on the right wing against Fulham. And it was a complete no-show from the guy. And I don't think he deserves another chance. When I look at someone like Wilson-Odobert, who has provided some bright performance in recent weeks. He had he had a very good game against AZ Alkmaar, a very good game at Man City, and he had a very good international break for the French under-21s. And I think we should look to capitalise on that. He's clearly a player that's playing with a little bit of confidence, and after some really good performances recently, I think he's earned the right to come in here and start at right wing, and I think we should give Wilson-Odobert a chance. In this game, because we're going to spend large periods of the game without possession, you are going to need that player that can carry the ball. A bit like when we played Man City, even though we lost 1-0, Wilson-Odobert was the bright spark in that game. He was the guy that relieved the pressure. We could get him the ball and he could carry it up the field. He could beat 1 or 2 players and try and put crosses in the box. And that's exactly what we need. If we want this attack to start pouring, we can't just rely on the creativity coming from one side. We have to be able to rely on creativity coming from both sides and some of them midfielders through the middle. Now, Maddison has proved he can provide it. Son has proved he can provide it. With Brennan Johnson, the only thing he's proved he can provide is just being in the right place at the right time. But there's so much more to us be having a much more ferocious and fruitful attack than just having that at right wing. Wilson-Odobert ticks off a lot more boxes, and I would argue would provide a lot more creativity down this right-hand side, which then provides a lot more unpredictability about our attack, because we don't just have to come down one side. They then have to worry about both sides, which means they have to spread out, which then in effect creates more space for you down the middle. It has a knock-on effect for everyone else. And I just don't think that Brennan Johnson can be trusted in these big games. Postecoglou has turned to him before, and in these big games he often fails to show up. So I think Odobert, hopefully he gets his chance, and hopefully he proves me right in that regard. And then that brings me on to the guy up front who, it's been a difficult season. It's been largely disrupted through injuries. Just when it looks like he's getting going, he's had an injury or had a knock here or there, and it's been a real stop-start campaign for Solanke. However, in the 4-3 earlier on in the season, he did score against his former club. Hopefully, he's motivated, steps up, and bags another one here, because we are going to need him at his best if we want to get something out of this game. I think in the Fulham game, if I remember correctly, in the second half, he had 3 or 4 chances. Very underwhelming in terms of the finishing. We need to see much more improved finishing in front of goal this time. He might only get 1 chance. He's got to bloody take it. So, guys, that's my predicted lineup. That's my reasons behind picking these guys. Please give me yours in the comment section below, along with any comments you may have, whether you agree or disagree with what I've had to say here today. And if you could please smash that like on your way out. And I'll see you back here for the pre-match build-up for the big London derby tonight at 5 p.m. Come on, you Spurs.